some moment.
And I'm back in the saddle.
Yes, it's good to see you. It feels
Good,
like a
thank
while
you.
since we've
Even
been
though
in
I
a room
left
together.
on, because last Tuesday,
Tuesday I was out.
you were out, and then I was here until Wednesday, and then Thursday you're in here.
Yep.
And I can tell because my seat feels different.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think one of your pillows usually goes missing.
Yep.
At least one.
And the way it sits is
the way it sits gets off
a little bit
kilter.
different. And
Yeah.
and then the weekend, obviously, it was gone. And so like we're finally kind of getting back on track a little bit. So
Just on track to go get on the rails for the crazy train for Christmas.
and that
and
was
all the good times.
That was the meetings today. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
this Wednesday Bible study. Next Wednesday Thanksgiving Eve. Then that weekend Advent. Not this weekend, but the following weekend Advent. Then the week after that the Christmas concert. Also Advent services. Like just
Yeah. Here we go.
boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
And away we go. So
It is good.
I figured for the 6 or 7 million people watching, I'd give an update on what I was doing this week.
I was interested because I really haven't had much time to talk to you today
No,
either.
not at all. Not on Tuesdays.
This will be my experience of the Synod Council as well.
So ELCA, Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, our national church body, which we're a part of, has a church council just like our congregation has a council.
Yes, we do. In
And-
fact, that's meeting tonight.
Yep. And so I have, by the time we get through tonight, I'll have been in 3 board meetings in the last 4 days.
That's really what pastors look forward to.
love that.
Yeah, yeah.
So church,
that's just-
the ELCA Church Council.
Yep.
Then I was at a Rotary meeting. That was a board meeting yesterday, and now tonight the Church Council. So
Yep.
3 different council meetings, but we do not exactly the same things, but a lot of the same things. For example, we had, like we'll do tonight, we'll have a portion of the meeting will be devoted to the church budget of the ELCA.
Okay.
And like all of us, there's been some budget cutting, and so they were readjusting their budgets for 2025, and we were looking at all of the different departments that are affected by budget cuts.
Yeah.
But we also heard from the legal department, and every time we have a meeting, we hear from the legal department if there are any pending litigation, and there's always something at a church or an organization of this size. There's always something.
I mean, this is nationwide.
Yep,
So,
can't talk about it because that's under confidentiality, but I can
Right.
say that we
Okay.
we met with the lawyer, and then we talked about something that I've mentioned before, but it's been a while, is there was a commission put together called the Commission for a Renewed Lutheran Church. And their number one task was to look at our Constitution from the national side, which looks a lot like our congregational Constitution in a lot of ways, and to say what needs to be looked at, what needs to be evaluated, what needs to be updated so that we're a little bit more nimble and responsive to things and a little bit less prescriptive where this is what you have to do and here's how you do it, right? And so
which is hard when you're talking to a nationwide,
expression of
Yeah.
church with 3 million members of the ELC.
Right.
And
It's hard not to be generic at that
right.
point.
And so they've been working for the past year, and we're just now starting to look at what they're bringing to church council and then potentially to the National Assembly, which is like a big congregational meeting,
Okay.
which is next year.
Okay.
And so they started bringing some proposals, but they're not proposals where we would just say, okay, do this. What happens is we hear them, but then they go to a committee, and I know that sounds terrible, a committee, but
Pastors love them, though.
right, the Constitutional Review Committee that knows everything inside and out about how constitutions work.
Okay.
And so they'll take those findings and look at them within the lens of not because they're opposed to change, but making sure that there aren't any blind spots. You know, you could propose something, it sounds really good, and then there's unintended consequences. Like, oh, we didn't think about that,
Yeah.
and then it's a mess. Well, they kind of know, like, what are the unintended consequences if
Okay.
you put. So they're starting to work on some things, and we looked at a couple of things. Nothing monumental,
but it's stuff you have to stay in the
but
loop on.
stay in the loop on, and thoughtful, good proposals. But like I said, nothing earth shattering. And so it really feels like they brought a few things, but it'll be in April, which is the next, and technically my last meeting because of the term,
Okay.
you know, because I absorbed somebody else's term. So I started in 2023, but 2025,
Okay.
midway through the year, I'm done. So it looks like a lot of that will come to evaluate and discuss and maybe even move, meaning action, rewriting some stuff in April so that in July of next year, there's a church-wide assembly. And the church-wide assembly, like I said, is a lot like a congregational meeting that we have. That's where we do all the big business, budgets and discussing about staffing and all that kind of stuff. Same thing with the church-wide. Every 3 years, there's a church-wide assembly. And that is, I will be at that because that is the, one of the roles of church council is be present at a church-wide assembly.
Okay.
So I'll be at that. It's in Phoenix.
Okay.
And I found out this time I'm actually more than just a presence as a church council member. I'm actually a voting member too. So I found that out. And but it's kind of a big deal because we'll be looking at a lot of that stuff, potential changes to our Constitution at a national level. We will be electing a new presiding bishop, which is different than our synodical or our synod bishop, which is Bishop Deborah.
Mm-hmm.
She's still in place, but there's a bishop above all bishops. Is that
Bishop of, yes, that's what they are known as. It's the bishop above all bishops.
I try to avoid using the term the big bishop because that would not be good. But we elect a new national leader for our church.
Wow.
And one of the offices within our church organization is called the Office of the Secretary. And it has nothing to do with office administration work. It has everything to do with the roster of pastors, the roster of deacons, our constitutions. Like, it's all the heavy hitting.
Okay.
And our current secretary it's an elected position, and she is not going to run for re-election.
Okay.
So 2 of the large positions at Churchwide are going to be new people.
Okay.
Which is in some ways you go, well, maybe some fresh blood, sure. But at the same time, you're like, that's a lot of what I call brain drain. When you have a lot of turnover, if you only have one position, you go, okay, they'll catch up. But when you losing 2 of the biggest, not the biggest, but 2 of the big names or people with lots of institutional knowledge,
That has an effect. Sure.
it does.
Yeah.
And on top
Yeah,
of
yeah,
that, when I roll off church council at the end of church-wide assembly, that's when I'm officially done, is about half of the church council rolls off too. So there's going to be a lot of turnover, right?
Yeah.
So there's that. So the couple other things that we dealt with was this understanding of living into this phrase, God's love made real, which is kind of what we want to do as Christians every day. God's love made real. We want to talk about God in a very relevant, tangible way. Acts of service, God's love made real through the things we say and do. And they're working on making sure that people understand that that is the direction of the church, is that it's about making God's love real in other people's lives. And they do that in three ways, and working towards a model. Being a welcoming church, which we aim to be a welcoming church, so check that. And specifically engaging new and diverse people. We're all about that.
Absolutely.
Two, a thriving church. And they say it in two ways. Rooted in tradition, which we're rooted in some tradition, but also being relevant. When you only cling to tradition, sometimes relevancy goes out the window. I think we do a good job of balancing between our traditions and then being relevant too. So I feel like CLC, that's good.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then a connected, sustainable church, which is basically saying that reminder that we're not out here by ourselves. Community Lutheran Church does not stand alone in the world as the only Lutheran church, that we need to be, understanding that we're part of a larger church body, which I think we are, and certainly going to Synod Assembly and being on the church council of the entire Lutheran Church, we want to continue to do that. Now, I sit on a subcommittee, a committee called Service and Justice. And the Service and Justice unit or home office of the ELCA handles everything from our religious Lutheran connections around the world, like other Lutheran churches in Europe, Africa, Eastern Europe, everywhere.
Okay.
So Service and Justice tend to those relationships. Not only that, but they also send the young adult and global mission. YAGM is what they're called. I've had a couple of my own church members who have
too.
participated
Yeah.
in YAGM, not from here, but have done that. And so that's sending post-college age kids somewhere in the world with a supervisor, obviously, but to mission sites where they do mission work in a foreign country for a year. And many of those YAGM students end up eventually making their way to seminary. Not all of them, but many of them do.
It's a really eye-opening growth experience.
Yep. And it's also where our connection to Lutheran World Federation is. It's our connection to what used to be known as Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Services, LARS, yeah, something like that, which is now called Global Refuge. They rebranded. So how we help as a Lutheran church those who are migrating or looking for citizenship in the United States through the immigration process, and accompanying those folks who are coming here with visas and approved to do so, and helping those folks who get here, how do we get them established and not fall through the cracks.
Okay.
And then also, even a subset within that, also some of the diverse and what we'd call like historically less represented communities, Lutheran communities, like Latino ministries, and even African American descent ministries, and even Palestinian. Because remember, I talked about this a couple weeks ago. Don't forget that the majority of Christians in the Holy Land, they're Palestinian. They're not Jewish, right? And so there's Palestinian
great church.
Lutheran
Yeah.
communities in the United States. So there's kind of domestic and international. The World Hunger Program in the Lutheran Church, Service and Justice. Lutheran Disaster Response, Service and Justice. So I sit on that committee, and what is really fascinating is I think the attempt to tend to all of those different constituencies, all those relationships, because it's always about relationship, and how they stay connected to folks around the world. And one of the things that was reported was that, it's not just tending the relationships, but there are other Christian organizations, and I know more, but I can't say anymore.
Sworn to secrecy.
There's some confidentiality, so that are trying to sabotage our Lutheran relationships with other Lutheran churches out in the world. And so it isn't just about tending, it's about trying to stay connected and even strengthen, because there are people working the opposite side trying to sabotage those relationships.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
The focus that we can, where do we set our priorities? Is it building each other up, or is it,
Yeah,
some of these divisions that
right.
can exist?
Yeah.
Because it's doing amazing work.
Yeah, and they do. And the new head of Service and Justice, Palestinian pastor, Kader El-Yatim, so I get to sit on that committee and interact with him. And he is just, since this spring, he has hit the ground running. And just, I mean, he left the meeting on Sunday, and when he replied to a small email that I was a part of, he was already in Germany on Monday.
Really?
Yeah. And talked about, I'll be there, and then he's somewhere else, and then he'll be back in the United States, and then, just he's literally globetrotting to tend to all these relationships, including our interaction with the Lutheran World Federation, which is kind of the pan-Lutheran group. So just so much going on.
But there is, it takes a lot. Most of it behind the scenes work, right? I mean, we see some of these things, and we're a part of all of it, but a lot of it we don't realize the details that go in behind the scenes.
And I'll be honest with you, I didn't.
I didn't either, no.
Until I sat in church council with that, and I've have said that I said it's important that we get, as the Lutheran Church, our public relations house in order, so that these stories can be told. Because I don't think you realize, there's so much good stuff happening out there that they're just not good at getting it from the actual thing they've done to telling the rest of us about it. But it doesn't mean good things aren't happening. It's just that we often don't know about it. So I've said, please get all that, tell those stories, get it all on video, get it onto one web page, so you don't have to hunt for it. Like everything we're doing, just put it out there so we can find it and share it and build people up. So hopefully they will eventually get to that point where they'll do that. So anyways, that was, flew out on Wednesday. Meetings began Thursday. They were all day Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday morning before going right to the airport to come home.
Wow.
So
that's a full weekend.
it was not a half-day meetings and then lounging around the pool by any
Wow,
stretch.
yeah.
And get this, so we were flying home, and many of us ran into each other from the church council at the airport, because we're all trying to get to different parts of the country, and the ELCA uses United as their primary carrier for travel.
Okay.
So we're all in the United terminal, all of a sudden there's so-and-so, and there's so-and-so, and there's so-and-so. But there was major turbulence in the middle of the country on Sunday.
Okay.
Air turbulence.
Wow. And I thought, did you say on the way out too, or?
Yeah.
Actually,
On the
'cause
way
I thought I
out,
got a text from you that said on the way
It was-
out, you hit
the
some turbulence.
flight to Chicago was worse than the one coming back. But I always check the turbulence report.
Okay.
And I see this, and I think this is going to be a terrible flight coming home. And I'm just ready, because, I'm
Hold on.
Rachel's sleeping next to me.
Yeah.
I'm holding on for dear life. She don't care. I do. I'm like, I said to her, I'm like, don't you care that I might die?
Yeah. You might.
I might
You got to be
die.
careful.
And I didn't
People
say
shouldn't
we.
care.
I didn't say we because she wasn't worried about it. I'm like, I might die. Anyway, so we're flying, and I'm just expecting the worst. And it starts to get bumpy, but nothing terrible. Just kind of jostling, bumping, nothing to make you gasp out loud. And I realized because I like window seats, so I know the terrain. I know, like I've seen.
You've been on this trip before.
Yes, and all of a sudden I'm like, this is unfamiliar terrain. So we either went, and because there were no screens in the back of the seats,
As to which way
where
you're
you were
going.
going,
Yeah.
I had to
Some of
look
those are nice.
Yeah, I like tracking.
Kind of a interesting flight.
and thought we either went north all the way to Montana and hung a left and went down through Utah and came home,
Okay.
or we went south
Yeah.
and avoided kind of the central Rockies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So once I got home, I realized we went south.
Okay.
Totally different terrain and kind of geography, and I'm like, this is not familiar. But when we were getting ready to make our descent into Las Vegas, pilot comes on, and he says, this is about the time we'd start our initial descent into Las Vegas, but because we've been flying at 24,000 feet today, we will start our descent in about another 10 minutes. Now, if you're not aware, normally when you're flying cross country, you're somewhere at 35
you're a
to
little higher.
37,000 feet.
A little higher, yeah.
Somewhere in there. We were about 9 to 11,000 feet lower. And
Okay.
you could tell, I mean, looking out the window, you could tell you are not as high up
Yeah.
as you normally would be. And
Clipping some telephone poles and everything.
right, clipping the edge of
Yeah.
a mountain. So I knew we were flying lower, but I was surprised that we were at 24,000 feet, and I think primarily was to avoid the
Well,
rough weather. So on the
think
way
that-
off the plane,
It was nice.
I said thank you to the pilots. I said thank you for flying lower, and thank you for taking a different flight path, so that I did not die on your plane.
Yeah.
So
They wouldn't want to have
a dead
your
death
death
a dead
on their
passenger on their
conscience.
hands, right?
Yeah.
And then what would Rachel do? She'd have to scrape me up and take me to Davis or Palm or somebody. I don't know. But
no recommendations.
no recommend. I'm not highlighting anybody here. Neptune Society. I don't know. Right? We'll get them all in.
Yeah.
So so the pilot flew lower and a totally different route to avoid most of the worst of the
Interesting.
turbulence. So
Okay.
I've never had that before.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I was
It's been a while since I've been in real rough turbulence.
So I was
haven't
telling you on the
at
way
all.
to Chicago on Wednesday, the pilot ahead of time said, we're going to have some unavoidably rough air today. And we're somewhere over Denver, and smooth, no seatbelt sign, and out of nowhere, the plane got hit by wind. And it was like a big hand smacked the plane
Really?
because it made a noise like pow, and then we jolted. Now, mind you, the pilot got on immediately and said, put on your seatbelts beyond the little
Yeah.
light. I always have my seatbelt on. Always. I do not get up during a flight. I buckle in and that's it. So he didn't have to tell me, but everybody else.
Yes.
And you knew it was bad when he said, flight attendants, get to your jump seats in 60 seconds or less.
That makes you feel good.
Does not instill confidence, right? Does not instill confidence for the nervous
Wow.
guy. And then we pretty much bounced all the way through Nebraska and a good part of Iowa coming towards Chicago. And then he even said, even the descent into Chicago could be a little dicey.
Wow.
But as it turned out, he found some clean, smooth air, and the descent and landing was actually not bad. But I was waiting for one of these coming in.
One of those landings
Yeah.
that's just kind of, wow.
Yeah. So, and it was raining on Wednesday when we arrived, and we did not see the sun the entire time in Chicago. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, not one lick of blue sky the entire 5 days, which tells me I'm spoiled because I don't necessarily think about sunny skies, but when you don't see them for 5 days, you're like, Where's the sun?
Right, right. We kind of appreciate a little shower here
Here
or
and
there.
there, yeah, right?
But yeah, we get plenty of sun.
We get a lot of, I mean,
And
you know
I
that.
remember that. Like, yeah, where you have so many days of gray.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I can remember, and when you're living in it, you just kind of go, oh yeah. But I can remember stretches of 2 weeks without sun. I mean, clouds and overhang. But when you're not used to that, you're like, dang, when's the sun gonna come out?
right.
And yeah, so that was a lot of stuff. I believe because there is a church-wide assembly next year, the spring meeting is going to be really full to make sure that any agenda items that need to go to the church-wide assembly gets done. So I actually think the April meeting is going to be really full to make sure.
Sounds like this meeting was full too.
It
but-
was, and I think it's going to be twice that when we get to April. So, and somebody even said if we need to do some online meetings to move stuff, don't forget
That might be, yeah.
that we might need to
might
do
be
that,
helpful.
right? So
Yeah.
who knows? But anyways, there's no place like home. It's good to be back, and
Away we go.
away we go through Thanksgiving, Advent, and Christmas, and all the things that go with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Glad you're back.
So I'm glad to be back. And I slept 11 hours on Sunday night to Monday morning, which I never do. I don't have the opportunity to, but I don't normally do that. So we get home. We had to do a few things. We plopped down on the couch at about 7 o'clock. We got home at 3:30, but we had some things to do. 7 o'clock, we're in for the night, sit down on the couch, and within 45 minutes, I was asleep on the couch. And now, mind you, Chicago's 2 hours later, so that's not 7:45, it's like 9:45,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And body adjusts quickly, and Rachel just finally says, let's just go to bed. She's like, I can read a book, but let's just go to bed. So went to bed at 8, and I got up at 7 in the morning on Monday. Like,
Sometimes you need that.
yeah.
I know
and
I
that's,
do. Yeah.
Normally,
we need that.
I get 7 hours of sleep. I mean, I take more, but normally 6.5, 7 hours of sleep is what I get. So that was like 11 hours. I was out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need those.
Yep, occasionally. So just a ton of stuff going on.
Good stuff.
Yeah,
Good stuff.
And I'm gonna, just so you know, I'm gonna write about in more detail in my blog for this week, kind of a recap of
What you did.
in a little bit more detail. So when you get the Friday newsletter and you see a note from Pastor Ben, you can click on that link and that'll pop up, and you'll get to hear a little bit more. So yeah. So this past weekend, which I missed completely, I was in church though, because we do church services. Yep.
Yep.
So Sunday morning we were
You had worship.
We were in the chapel at the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America at 8755 Higgins Road, Chicago, Illinois.
They'll give you an absent letter you can present to council.
I do need a note from the presiding bishop, like, hey, could you sign me a permission slip? You know. Oh, here's the other thing I forgot to tell you. So on Friday, I tweaked my back again too.
Oh no. Really?
Yeah, I literally was trying to wash my feet, and I was bent over.
It's important to have,
Clean
that,
feet.
that yearly foot washing.
Yeah,
Where
right.
you try to get those clean.
You know how beautiful are the feet of those who bring the good news, right?
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You got to be ready for this stuff. That's Isaiah, isn't it? Not,
I think so.
And I was washed, and all of a sudden I felt it. It went, and you just know, right? So I walk over, which is about a half a mile over to Churchwide from the hotel. You just walk. And the first thing I do is I have a colleague over there who used to serve a church in the suburbs in my same conference. His name's Keith, and Keith now works at Churchwide. I'm like, Keith, I need a Ziploc bag with ice.
Yeah.
And he finds me a Ziploc bag, fills it with ice. I ice my back all day Friday in the meetings, like just back
Wow.
here. And believe it or not, it helped tremendously because Saturday was better. Not back
Yeah,
to
because that could have been really bad. But
had it gone back to what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was really
managed it.
worried about that because that was miserable, and it loosened things up enough that I'm still not kind of back to my new normal, but I'm way better than I was. So little back problem in there too. So
All the things.
all the things, right? All the things. And but this weekend, which like I said, I missed everything. There was a beautiful take on a psalm during communion at 9:30.
Yes.
And
Might have heard it at 8 o'clock as well.
oh, did
but
we do it at 8 too? Yep. So what I had said to Philip and I said to Pastor Brian, I said, like, I wasn't here, so I have no input. Tell me, what should we listen to not only today but on Thursday, which we have those selections. So the one on Thursday, I already know the song, not because I heard it, but we've done it before. But this one I haven't. And the minute I looked at the lyrics, I said, I know this psalm.
Yes, you do.
I don't know the song, but I know the psalm.
Yes, you do.
And so as we listen to this, I want you to make your guess of what psalm this is. How about that? So let's take a listen. We'll talk about it when we come back.
How precious are your thoughts, O God. How great is the sum of them, how grand. If I could count them all, O God, they are more in number than the sand. Whither shall I go from thy spirit? Or whither shall I flee from thy care? If I ascend up into heaven, you are there. You are there. And if I make my bed with the devil, behold, you are there in the halls of heaven. You are there watching over me. If I take the wings of the morning and I dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there your left hand shall lead me, and your right shall always hold to me, for you are there. You are there on the wings of morning. You are there, always holding me. If I say surely the darkness shall cover me, even the night shall light marvelous are thy works, O God, and that my soul knows right well. How precious are your thoughts, O God. How great is the sum of them, how grand. If I could count them all, oh God, they are more in number than the sand. 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 They are more in number than the sand.
What a moving song.
So yeah, beautiful song, and one I had not heard either.
And I don't have any information on it. I remember Philip had a collection of psalms to music. Somebody connected to his family. I'm wondering if it's from that collection. That not published, not, but so since he's not here today, I will have to ask him.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you can, so here's the other thing is this was during communion, and you can tell that it was moving because normally you don't get applause during communion for any sort of performance.
You did though.
And as we cut off of that, you heard. So in the room, people were moved by that. So here's the question. Do you know what psalm this comes from? I know you do.
I do. I used it, I think, twice at little things just last week.
See?
Yeah.
It's one that pastors, I think, have affinity for. And we will break it out, but it is Psalm 139. And yeah, I think the appeal to Psalm 139 for a lot of us is it has a very personal
Yeah.
flow
It
to
does.
it.
You've brought that up. You can even fit somebody's name.
Into
into
Psalm
the psalm.
139, and you feel like it's aimed at you or someone you love, where some of the other Psalms, God, strike down my enemies with, righteous lightning.
I mean,
and,
there's all kinds of emotion in there.
right.
There is. Yeah.
But I think Psalm 139 has this this personal feel to it. And so we're just going to take a few of the lines from this song, which are from the psalm itself. For example, how precious are your thoughts, O God? You heard that as we ended. How great is the sum of them? How grand, if I could count them all. They are more in number than the sand. Or from the New International Version, how precious to me are your thoughts, O God. How vast is the sum of them, and were I to count them, they would outnumber the grains of sand. And while I awake, I am still with you. And you say, okay, God, you have thoughts, and you are almighty, you are omnipotent, you are our King, which is our
Yes.
theme. And I was thinking about the thoughts of God, which are righteous, they're right, they are just, they are holy. And if you put them together, what would you find but not just the intelligence of God, but you would find the wisdom of God. That there are no stray thoughts, there are no random thoughts of God, there are no hypotheticals with God. It's just wisdom. And I was thinking, okay, so how vast are your thoughts, O God? How do we tap into that? And believe it or not, first place jumped out at me. Half brother of Jesus, James, that letter.
James, yeah.
I told you, I gravitate towards that.
Which is interesting because some people kind of stay away from it.
Yep.
But it does have a lot of really neat insights.
Yeah. And James says this. He says, look, if you lack wisdom, they should ask God, or you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to them.
There's that little element of grace in there as well, which some people
Yeah.
think it's hard to find there. But like God's not gonna find fault; just wants you to hear and like, let's ask, let's learn, and God's gonna help you grow. God's gonna give you wisdom.
Yeah, right. And that's the thing, though, is it's so paradoxical. You're like, well, it's that simple, right? You're like, if you want to understand and have the same understanding that God has, to see things from God's point of view, that you want godly wisdom in your life, James says all you got to do is ask.
All you got to do is ask.
And here's the deal: we don't. We don't. You go, it's that simple, and you need to ask for it. And it's not like, you go to bed and then you wake up and you're full with godly wisdom. But what God will do then is, if you ask for it and you truly want it, then God will put into your path things that will increase your wisdom. In other words, you might go, oh man, I saw this devotional book. Maybe I should pick it up and start reading. Like, oh, I saw something about the book of James, and I'm going to read that, or oh, I'm going to pay attention when, I'm going to come to Bible study because we're going to talk about Ecclesiastes on Wednesday, which we are. And you're like, if you ask for wisdom, then God's going to give you the appetite, the willingness to increase that. But another line from James, from the 2nd chapter, he says this: you have not because you ask not. Which
is so true.
Right?
Like we can, I'm going to do it my way.
Yeah.
Just handle it.
That's right. Or, not just that, but it's also, well, I'm smart. We all think we're smart.
Got this better than somebody else.
Yeah, I'm smarter than the average bear, Yogi Bear, right? And we don't stop to go, maybe God knows better. Maybe it'd be good if I took into my being godly wisdom and meditated on that and employ that in my life. Because remember, I told you what my definition of wisdom is understanding or knowledge plus putting it into practice equals wisdom.
Yeah.
Because you can have a lot of knowledge and be really smart and not know what to do with it. And that doesn't really help anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like driving a car, right? Like rules of the road. You could get 100 on your rules of the road test, but you may be a terrible driver. But when you can take the rules of the road and actually put them into practice in your driving skills, that equals wisdom.
There you go.
Right? It keeps you alive and keeps other people
Yeah.
alive, right?
Yeah.
So when you think about the thoughts of God and the wisdom of God, if you want that, you got to ask for it. And then be open to the learning that God will present to you.
Yeah.
Here's another great line. Whither shall I go from thy spirit? Or, I don't use that word enough.
Whither?
Whither.
Yeah.
Whither shall I flee from thy care? I'm going to slur this. If I ascend up to heaven, you are there, you are there. Or, Pastor Brian, you could read from the New International Version that does not use the word whither.
Whither.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dana had to use whither.
Yeah, I probably will not. Again,
Where can I go?
where can I go? There we go.
Well,
From your spirit. Yeah. You want to finish reading that one?
I will.
Yeah.
Do you want me to read that from the
From
Psalm?
Psalms. Yeah, just read the Psalm first. Yeah.
So where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast.
So the Psalm has a promise that God's going to show up in your life. If you're a person of faith, God's going to show up in your life.
Yeah, almost directly, like the words
Yep.
of the song really just take it directly
That's
from, and they really, there is a gravity to it. There
Yeah.
is strength to those words.
There's even a line in the song that uses an older version of translation that says, if I make my bed with the devil, that's in the
Yeah.
song, you are there. And I prefer the depths. Personally.
depths,
The
yeah.
depths is enough. In other words, even if I die, God, you're going to be there. And that totally correlates, not just as Psalm 139 is a promise, but Psalm 23, I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I'm going to be with God. And then you go to the New Testament, and a place that we often reference in often memorial or funeral services is Romans chapter 8, verse 38, which actually takes this promise and fully like brings it to life. You want to share that?
Yeah. So this is from Romans 8, and also, again, another really powerful passage.
Right.
For I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, nor height, nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is revealed in Christ Jesus our Lord.
Nothing can separate us. Wherever we're at, even if I settle on the edge of Lake Michigan for a few days,
Yeah. You are there.
God's there, even at the ELCA national offices,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So, but I think that's the thing, is that you're not always going to feel that presence, but don't let how you feel dictate whether the promise is real or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think when we live too much by our feelings, we'll make snap judgments like, well, God's nowhere around here because I feel like junk. Or this is God's will or this is not God's will, as I talked about 2 weeks ago, only based on how I'm feeling,
Yeah.
right? So don't let your feelings get in the way of the promise that God says, no matter what, even though you walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you are with me.
Yes. That is the promise.
So Psalm 139 says it, Psalm 23 says it, Romans 8 says it, and Jesus says, I will be with you in Matthew 28, 20. I will be with you even to the end of time. So we hear that time and time again. So we can take that to the bank and hold on to it. Now, finally, today, one more verse from the song. Even the night shall light my way. Yea, the darkness cannot hide from thee. But you, the night shines as the day, and I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Or, from a little bit more updated, if I say, surely the darkness will hide me, and the light become night around me, even the darkness will not be dark to you, God. The night will shine like the day. You know, God has like night vision goggles.
Yeah,
You know
that's
what I'm
it's saying.
I mean, that's basically
what it's saying.
For darkness is as light to you. And then this kind of second thought, which was incorporated. For you created in my inmost being, you knit me together in my mother's womb, and I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. So first of all, you say, well, man, I just want to hide. I want to run away. I want to be like good old guy who went to Nineveh. Why am I drawing? Noah. Noah. I'm like, why am I drawing a blank on his name? Jonah, I'm going to run. God says, not so fast. You can't run from me.
Can't run.
Right?
Didn't work out.
You know, you can hide on a ship, and I'm going to be there. You can hide in the belly of a large fish or something, but I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
And when Jonah recognizes that and goes, oh, yeah, God, you're here too, and, I am missing out on what this inheritance could be in you, and that's foolish. God's like, okay, fish, spit him up. Let's move on with this story, right? And so I can't believe I forgot Jonah's name.
Jonah.
Jeez, getting old. I'm telling you.
Old Jonah.
Good old Jonah, right? And then this understanding that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, that even before our lives began, God was there.
It really is a beautiful song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reminded me immediately of John chapter 1. So, fourth gospel, New Testament, and John is telling the story of the beginning of time in kind of this cosmic sense, not like the story of Genesis, but it's still a creation. And it says this, in the beginning was the Word, Jesus, the wisdom of God. The Word was with God, and the Word was God, and he was with God in the beginning. So we hear this understanding of Jesus as the Word of God, the wisdom of God, being there at the beginning. And then it says, through him, through Christ, all things were made. And without him, nothing was made that has been made. And in him was life, and that life was the light of humanity. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not understood it. Now, other translations says overcome, but it struck me today that this is much more personified, understood it.
Interesting.
You know, you think about
overcome is kind of the
what
I think of when I think of this verse.
Right, and you go, oh, like a campfire at night. As long as that campfire is burning bright, the darkness will not encroach on that firelight. But when you use the word understood it, all of a sudden we're almost personifying the light of God, Christ, and in some ways evil. And that when that light showed up, that darkness, that evil was like, I don't get it. I don't like it. I don't get it. I want nothing to do with it. And yet that light is there. And so when we try to hide, it's silliness. In other words, we're only in denial.
Yeah,
right.
I think that's important, and just to just gain that understanding and just accept it. Accept that we have someone who's going to love us no matter what.
No matter what, and wants to bring light to our lives, not to shame us. Like I'll turn on the lights and I'm gonna.
Now I can get you.
Now I can get you. It's more turn on the light so you can live differently.
Yeah.
And live in the light.
Doesn't do it for God's perspective. God sees us no matter what. If we're trying to hide in the dark, God.
It's for our own
good.
Living in the light is way better than living in the darkness. Yeah. And here's the thing: is that folks who live in the darkness, eventually, they are exposed to the light and they want to run from it because they don't want the truth to come out. But those of us who want to live in the light doesn't mean we're perfect. It's just that we're willing to own it. Like, oh, I messed up. I'm gonna, make amends and move forward, right? And that's really what life is about. So, great song, great psalm, right? And that's what we got for you today. I know we went a little bit longer than we normally do, but I wanted to catch everybody up on
there's a lot going on.
Stuff going on.
Yes.
So, Philip is not with us, so we'll save a couple of minutes there.
There we go. Now we're on track.
Now we're back on. No. But anyways, we hope you have a good rest of your day. And Pastor Brian are actually going into a meeting to talk about sermons for the next month. And then we're going into church council. So boom, boom, boom. It's one of those days. So take care. Don't forget you can join us for Bible study tomorrow online if you're not going to join us in person. And we're going to talk about the book of Ecclesiastes. So I'd love to see you tomorrow night at 6 o'clock Pacific time if you want to join us for Ecclesiastes. So anyways, God bless you. We love you. Take care, and we'll see you soon.
All right.